Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. It's Chad Hyams here and Bob Stewart over there. Bob, how are you doing today?
Really testing out those pipes, Chad.
I'm warming up, Bob. I've got some big stuff coming up, so warming up.
I've got like we've got audio bars or whatever down on the bottom. Like that was a solid audio bar right there, my friend. That was
Thank you. I will work on getting a longer intro for you on a future episode, or maybe a past episode.
You can call me Robert. That would be a longer intro than Bob.
Oh, I can just hold Bob longer.
With Robert,
I can just hold Bob longer.
So we have a guest today, like we do from time to time, and as you know, I stalk our guests.
You do.
And I feel we have a new record. I would say, like if we keep records around here,
somebody probably does somewhere.
This guest and I have the most Facebook friends in common of any guest we've ever had before, I think.
Yeah.
Now, so I actually, a lot of times.
Wait, does that mean we're hurting our listeners, Bob, because your friends are already supposedly listening and they're actually our guest friends and this was a bad call by me?
I don't know. We were not friends, our guest and I just requested him. So I guess after this, we'll see if he accepts it or not. Maybe an indication of how well we did interviewing him and bringing him in here. But I can I tell you a secret, Chad? I've never told you this before. Yeah, I get lot of random. I've never told you this one. I get a lot of random friend requests, right?
Yeah,
and
of course.
It's kind of typical of being in our industry. I think it's like we've got an industry where people are like, I got to make a bunch of connections online, and we've been out there online for years, so I get a lot of random ones, and I will let anybody through that has like a certain number of friends in common with me.
Okay.
But from time to if I see your face as one of those, Chad, it's an automatic gateway in for me.
Oh.
I don't know if that's smart or not. As I'm actually saying it out loud for the very first time, my brain's like checking, like, wait a minute, what? You're doing that? But I will let you know.
So if they already know me on Facebook, they're going to get the acceptance to Bob Stewart because you figure they've passed whatever test.
Yeah. I feel like you have a high bar to friend
I don't accept everybody anymore. And I will tell you, my trick, Bob, is this is one we used to teach over a decade ago. On everyone's birthday, I take a minute and check their profile and see if I'm keeping them as a friend or not. So, folks, that's my birthday gift to you. You have survived, maybe, and we can still be friends.
I love it.
All right, it's enough about us, though, Bob, because as you said, we do have a guest today, has a lot of Facebook friends in common with us, which is why it was not a surprise when I got his message on Facebook that said to me, hey, now I will tell you, don't everybody go do this, because I'm not going to say yes.
Do it to Chad. Do it right now.
I am not going to say yes to many of you, because I have gotten many who have said, Chad, I want to be on the podcast. And I've immediately said, what would you talk about that's different? And I never get a response. Right? I didn't have to ask this person what he was going to talk about differently, because he knows what he's talking about. And I wanted to make sure we shared it with each and every one of you. So, Dan, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Bob. Hello.
All right. We don't introduce our guests. We let our guests
Dan has people, though, Chad. Dan has people. They sent us. I saw it yesterday. Normally, I'm not on these, by the way. Dan's people sent us a very nice bio.
Yep.
A really good headshot. I'm not going to lie. When I saw his headshot, I was like, this dude's way too handsome to be on our podcast. Luckily, we don't do
Good
video.
Good point.
But Dan, we don't read those slicked up bios that you sent us. Can you introduce yourself to our audience for everybody, kind of in the way that Dan wants to be known here today?
My name is Dan Rochon. I have been a real estate agent since 2007. When I got my license in 2007, I struggled like most do. And my first closing took me 6 months. After my first closing in April of 2008, I had a lot of success. And in April 2009, I was able to buy the franchise I was a broker, an agent of. It was a Keller Williams Realty franchise. I was the operating partner for that for the next 10 years, sold that in 2018, opened up my coaching company, Consistent Predictable Income Community. And recently I wrote and authored a book called Teach to Sell. tell you more about that and, sort of where that came from. But I would say my greatest claim to fame in business, in entrepreneurship, in all the different things that I've done tons of joint ventures and partnerships and ownership. But as a real estate agent since 2008, I've had no broke months. And that for me has been the hardest achievement that I've had and the one that I'm most proud of. And it was a few years ago when I was looking back on my career. I was sort of like a crossroads in my career and say, okay, what do I want to be known for? And really, I just want to be known for being a good dad, being a good person, being a good human being, helping people out. But in business, it's like, what am I most proud of? I would say is having no broke months since 2008.
I mean, look, I've been in real estate for 26 years now. It's not common. Like, you're a unicorn in many ways, or a top 1%, or however you want to, label it. If people that have been in this industry know that's a feat. Congratulations. Like, that is.
Dan, tell everyone what it means for people who are like, I think I know what that means, but what do you mean by no broke months?
So in real estate sales, there's three different types of agents. There's the most common agent who does very little transactions or none. And that's the most common. And then you've got the top performers. And you got the top performers are the 1% and 1% that you talked about that have consistency through time. And typically it's going to be a lot of transactions through time. And then you have the second most common agent, which is that sort of in between, where they'll have 1 to 3 transactions in January, nothing in February, nothing in March, 1 to 3 in April, et cetera. And so that's a common, so if you're looking at this, you're looking at 98% of agents either fall in that very little or no transactions, or 1 to 3 every 3 months transaction. And the reason for that is because there's a 90-day cycle, 90 to 120-day cycle of the activity that I do today shows up 90 to 120 days from now. Mm-hmm. The challenge for that second, or I guess it was the last box of a group of people that I talked about, which is that 1 to 3, nothing, 1 to 3 transactions, is once they start getting clients, then they stop doing lead generation.
Right.
And so for me, what's the secret to success? To having 0 months in almost 20 years without at least one closing, and most commonly, 5 to 10 transactions. How have I done that month after month after month? It's simple. Just I wake up every morning, I go to work. Now, what does that mean? That means I know what to do. And I categorize a real estate agent's job into five segments. Number 1 is to lead generate. Number 2 is to convert those people to meet with you. Number 3 is to go on the appointments to get hired. Number 4 is to negotiate. And number 5 is to practice your scripts and role play. And in all candidness, I only really focus on the first 4, only because I've spent tens of thousands of hours of crafting how to speak and how to communicate effectively. I teach it, and that's really where I grow, is more in teaching than I do learning. But I'm always learning how to say things better. More words better. I don't know if that's a good thing to say or not, but that's what I'm focusing on.
Chad, I'm having like a slight epiphany, maybe. Like,
really?
Dan? Yeah. Well, I know it doesn't happen very often, but what Dan described, or I at least, but I think we've always called that the roller coaster of real estate, Dan, right?
Yes.
It's like, man, I'm doing the work. Ooh, I got all the business, but now I'm not doing the work.
Bob, hold on. Before you go on, that's not just real estate. That's entrepreneurship, right? Sales, our restaurant gets busy. Our sales force gets busy. Whatever it is that I'm doing as an entrepreneur, then I get too busy dealing with the we got busy to continue to get busyness to keep coming in.
So it's the roller coaster. Here was my epiphany. That wasn't the epiphany because I knew that, Chad.
Of course.
The epiphany was, maybe we shouldn't call it. Roller coasters are fun. Like, I like roller coasters. Maybe I don't. People don't want to get off the roller coaster. That's why these agents, Dan, and you've seen them, you coach them, and like they stay on that roller coaster for a really long time sometimes. Maybe if we always just called it no broke months, they'd be like, yeah, I want no broke months, because I think people actually like roller coasters, Chad.
I do not. Do you Dan? Break the tie. Are you a roller coaster fan?
Chad, so sorry, my man. Going with Bob on this
I lose this one.
Bob got 2 books and a roller coaster analogy all for the places.
Trying to figure out how I get my hands on that Miss Pac-Man machine.
I couldn't get off I can't get off the roller coaster any faster. I'm surprised we've gone 10 minutes into this podcast and Bob Stewart has not mentioned the fact that over your left shoulder is a Miss Pac-Man machine.
I just said it. That's
what I'm saying, right? We went 10 minutes, Bob, before you brought it up. Dan, how many hours a day do you play? Is it when I close a deal, I'm allowed 1/4 in the machine? You've got a full-size Miss Pac-Man machine. I had one growing up. My father had one.
You said it's like 1983? What year did you say that one was
1980.
1980. Holy smokes.
That's an old 1980. When was the last time you played?
It's periodic. It's periodic. You know, it's like with my daughter, she's 15. It's when she has her friends over, you know, we throw some parties, you know, we'll jump on that Miss Pac-Man. But I will tell you this, a little lesson. Never challenge the owner of a Miss Pac-Man game to a game of Miss Pac-Man. That's just a little, you know, words of wisdom to you.
Yes. My boys are learning that about NBA Jam.
I won many a quarter at the arcade because my father had a Miss Pac-Man machine in the house. All right, let's get to what we're really here to talk about. There's 2 things I want to talk about. One thing you want to talk about. I'm bringing the second one into this, as I told you at the beginning. You've got a book. Now, we all know that Dave is king of win, make, give. No matter what Bob and I do and how many hours we put into it, Dave decides when episodes drop. So maybe the book's about to come out. Maybe the book already came out. Maybe the book's coming soon. So we're going to just talk in generic. The drop date for the book is going to be
June 23rd.
And the book is called
Teach to Sell, Why Top Salespeople Never Sell and What They Do Instead.
And we are excited to hear what they do instead because we have so many salespeople, real estate or other industry. And folks, everything you're doing is selling. You want to go on a vacation and you're convincing your partner to go, you're selling that. Please understand that. Selling doesn't just mean
maybe Dan might be suggesting that you're doing something else to get them to agree to the vacation.
To sell, he's going to take us into that regard. And Dan, I'm going to just put it out there. I already told you I am highly envious because you just also recently dropped a TED Talk, yet you had the opportunity to go give it in Italy. I got to ask just in case we never get back to it, did you learn it in Italian or did you do it in English before I go watch it?
It was done in English before you go watch it, and you can Google the influence gap, Dan Rochon, if you're interested to check it out. And the influence gap, it's and I'm gonna be transparent with you, Chad. Let me say this. So I know that you're doing a TED Talk relatively soon. 2 times in my life, I've had anxiety attacks.
Oh shit! Don't tell me this. I'm on the stage in 3 days.
Let them know.
I had an anxiety attack on the rehearsal the night before. So imagine
we don't get one of those.
All right, well, check this out. I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm jet lagged. I just went through a breakup with my ex-girlfriend. I am want to get this perfect piece out there. And I get on stage and through exhaustion, mental anxiety, and in a nervous system that was not cooperating, my body shut down. Now, the next day when I actually did the talk, I barreled through it. I did good. It wasn't what I wanted to do. My nervous system was still on fire. So if someone's interested to see how you could be on one of the biggest stages in the world and yet still barrel through it, because the message in my talk was so freaking important that I didn't care what my body was doing. I needed to get it out there. And so the influence gap is really a byproduct of Teach to Sell. And that goes back to like Bob saying, it's like, well, what is Teach to Sell? And I agree with you, Chad, that every single person is influencing somebody.
Yes.
Whether if it's, let's go on vacation, take out the trash, clean up your room,
list with me,
hire me, buy now, whatever it is, you're persuading. So then the concept that I teach in the book, Teach to Sell, is how can you persuade ethically? And not just how can you persuade ethically, but how can you have consistent, predictable income as a result of your persuasion? And so I go through in the book, and it goes down a hero's journey. In the hero's journey, I'll give you sort of a preview of coming attractions. The hero of the book is the reader. That's the salesperson, the entrepreneur. And this is for any industry, insurance sales, financial planning sales, plumbing sales, whatever you are, in whatever business that you're in, this book is for you. And so I'll tell you more about the 4 pillars as we go on, but that's what the influence gap is for the TED Talk. And that's what the book is for the book, Teach the Self.
Okay. So, folks, we have at least 2 good friends of the Win, Make, Give podcast that have TED Talks already, right? That's Dan here, and that's Brian Gubernick. We recommend you head to their YouTube channel. Go to Ted's YouTube channel and search for Dan and search for Brian. The Influence Gap, you can search right there on the page, and you can also search for Time is Finite, I believe is the title of Brian's off the top of my head. Get him a view, leave him a review, leave him a comment. It's all about the views on the TED Talk channel. And folks, yes, Chad promotion to come soon. Okay, so Dan, let's shift away from the TED Talk and let's get to the book, because yes, even though they're called different things and that's TED stuff and rules, people, the message is coming out of it, of course. You said the 4 pillars are in there. Should we dive right in, find out what these 4 pillars are? Would that be a reasonable place to start? Tease our audience, give them some value, yet make them want to then go to teach2sellbook.com and buy this later.
Yes. And when they go to teach2sellbook.com, they'll get access to a lot of free training, $10,000 worth of digital training they'll get access to. But the 4 pillars in the book that I describe are the pillar 1 is to believe in yourself.
Bob, you writing this down?
Yeah,
you're our note taker.
I got my book.
There you go.
And so I give you actionable, specific techniques on how to believe in yourself. And I'll give you a little nugget on that here in a moment after I describe the other 3 pillars.
Okay.
And so after you believe in yourself, then you have to understand, where do I find business? And so I give you, and I break down in today's age of here's how you find business. And I give you the specific ABC. The entire book is a blueprint. And it's a blueprint that's designed to appeal to whoever you are, whatever your personality is, whatever your behavior is, because I don't give you one path. I give you multiple paths. So, for example, when we're getting lead generation, if you're more of a marketing type person, then can you use radio, for example, in your advertising? Absolutely. But how can you use radio and amplify it so that you could be more segmented with the way that you invest your marketing budget? Podcast advertising, right? And so now you know exactly, like, your avatar, the people listening to me right now, the odds are you're a salesperson, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're a real estate agent, and that's the odds are it's who I'm talking to right now. Chad and Bob, am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's your audience.
Fantastic. So if I want to just get to that audience, the people that are listening to me right now, I could simply advertise on this podcast. If that's
no, you can't, because Ben Kinney made a policy. We will never take advertising on the Win, Make, Give podcast for the benefit of our audience. So you don't have to listen to it, although your point is taken, Dan.
And thank you, Ben Kinney. Then the next pillar, after we learn how to find business. So the first pillar is to believe in yourself. The second pillar is to find business. Then it's how do you build an organization? So this is pillar number 3. How do you build an organization of systems and of people to be able to support you for your goals? Specifically, how do you hire? Specifically, where do you hire? Specifically, what are the countries that you get a virtual assistant, depending on the role that you're putting them in? If it's a lead generation role that you're putting them into, it's going to be a different person than if you're putting them in an administrative role. So that's pillar number 3, is how do you build an organization? And then pillar number 4 is how do you lead? My definition of leadership is to teach somebody else how to think so that they can get what they want. This all ties back into ethically influencing, which is the influence gap, by the way, which I talk about in my TED Talk. And so that influence gap, I'll describe what that is, and I'll give you here's how you can fill it. It's broken into 3 parts. So the 3 parts of the model to be able to break that, to take that influence gap and to close it, those 3 parts. Part number 1, and I describe this in the book, is to be in rapport. So when I say be in rapport, most people hear something different than what I'm saying. They either hear how to get in a rapport or what is the result of rapport. So when I say be in rapport, people hear, oh, we want to like each other. Well, yes, but that's a result of the rapport. Or they may say something like, well, I'm going to find things that are like, like I'm going to, I'm going to role play, I'm going to model their tonality, their words that they speak, the pacing that they speak. These are tactics that I learned in my study of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis to be able to, again, influence, right? So that's how you get in a rapport. But what is rapport? Rapport is energy, and it's a connection of energy. There was a guy named Pierre Teilhard de Chardin in the early 1900s. He was a French philosopher and a French priest, and he taught us that we are spiritual beings manifested in a human condition. Now, what I've learned is that I think that everyone that's hearing those words right now resonate with that. What I've learned is never teach that when you're in front of a group of engineers. Just a little snippet right there. Okay? The only time I actually was teaching live to an audience, I had one of the audience members said, yeah, that's great, Dan. Move on. So anyways, so I was able to use that. That's a whole other story. And I was able to integrate that into the talk that I was doing. But going back to this is called the CPI communication model is what I'm describing to you, by the way. So number one is to be in rapport. It's that spiritual energy connection that Pierre Teilhard de Chardin taught us. Number two is once we're in that connection is to ask adept questions. Adept questions are those deep diving questions that uncover the truth, that uncover the things that whoever you're speaking with, they may actually be afraid of. And so that's what asking an adept question is. And then finally, the third step in the CPI communication model that I describe in the book is to actively listen. What are you actively listening to? And four is you're actively listening to the energy. That's going back to step one. Because there's been times, if you can imagine, maybe you're with two partners or two spouses, and you say to the husband, do you want to do this deal? And the husband says, hell yes. And you say to the woman, the wife, do you want to do this deal? And she says, yes. Right? Did they both say yes? Verbally?
Yes. Yeah.
But did they say it energetically?
No.
All right. So now let's say you move forward without coming back and closing that, whatever it is that woman is experiencing, without addressing that concern, you're setting yourself up for challenges. And at best, you end up doing a deal with one party that wants to do it and another party that doesn't. And that's not a good thing to do, in my opinion. Okay. So that's the tools, an example of the tools that I give the audience in the book.
Okay. So the first pillar was.
I have a really weird, nitpicky question.
You usually do.
The word, did you say adept? Like ask adept questions? Was that why did you choose adept as the word? Like, was that purposeful? Look, I honestly, if I'm being like, I went and looked it up. Like, I know what adept means, but I'm like, well, that's a very particular word. I went and looked at the definition. It just means like skillful, right? So I'm asking, but like, can we, like, when I'm in rapport and I'm trying, and I've got that energy connect, what does that look and feel like? An adept question versus something else.
Yeah, let me change. And it's interesting about that you asked that because that was a debate that we had. So that using that word or using the word deep diving.
Okay.
And so in the book,
I like adept, but
well, it means the same. One's a little bit more sophisticated than the other. I chose to go with the word adept for the very reason that it triggered your brain to ask a question, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, so if I can make you think as you're reading something I authored or as I'm speaking and you're hearing, you're going to get the gist of what an adept question is, what the word adept is, right? You're going to sort of get that, but you may not know the answer to that. So maybe you got to Google it like you just did, but guess what? You'll remember it now because you had to do that. You had to do the work, and that's why we went with that word. But an example of an adept question would be. Go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes I see words, I know what they mean, but I'm fascinated by the decision to pick that word. Like, does it have extra weight to it? Okay, so give me an example.
It's interesting you asked the question because it was actually a debate, right? So it's like your question is not a random question at all. It's a very good question. But an example of an adept question. So typically, if you're going into like a communication pattern, I go through this in the book. It's like when you're communicating with somebody, you want to repeat back their like. Let's say you have a prospect and you're asking that prospect, you're getting an inquiry to see if if you're right to help them, and you ask them a question. It could be just some whatever random question. Do you want this service, or do you have a need, or whatever the case may be? They're going to say something. Whatever they say, typically I would repeat back their last few words of what they say, and then I would shut my mouth and then let them fill in the void. That will carry on a conversation relatively well until they get to a place where there's that void, continues. At that point, I'm going to ask a question. Before I ask a question, I may say something like, well, tell me more about that. Okay. What does that mean to you? That is a question there. When you achieve that, what goal does that help you achieve? And when you achieve that goal, what does that do for you and your family? So it's getting past the surface. So in NLP, we talk about deep diving versus surface level questions. So a surface level question is just sort of getting like, who are you? What do you want to do? What's your timeline? What's your budget? Those are all surface level questions. A deep diving question goes into the internal pain and desire.
So it's
in sales, you want to really touch into that internal pain. And then also the external pain, but then you want to say, okay, here's what you're experiencing right now with the internal pain. Then you want to get to the internal, external desire. And then you want to show the consumer that you are, or your service is, the pathway to get them from that pain to that desire. And typically the internal pain is going to be something along the lines of feeling bad about themselves because they can't do something somewhere in that box. And then your job again is to say, well, you feel like crap because you want to do this, but you don't feel that you could. What if we could come up with a solution to allow for you to do this? Now you're getting into, asking deeper diving questions or depth questions.
God, we've been doing this AI call coach in our world, and I've listened to more real live recorded phone calls, sales phone calls in the last probably 3 months than I ever have in my life. And there's so much of this missing in those calls, right? In most of those calls, right? You'll just hear, people ask, well, what has you guys thinking about moving? And they'll say, whatever they say, well, we're starting to outgrow this place a little bit. And that's it. And they're on to the next thing. And I'm constantly left in listening to these calls thinking, what? You just got on the phone with this person. They just said they're outgrowing. You don't know anything about their family. Like, that's where I'm going in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. Like,
all right,
this
so
is
let's
everywhere.
not get too specific to a certain audience here, right? Those are specific sales calls. This book is not for salespeople only. This is for everyone who's out there. So I want to go back to pillar one, because everybody needs to believe in themselves more. Yeah. And with the time that we have left, let's look at this. Let's give our audience, as they're getting to the end of this episode in the next 5-6 minutes or so as we're going, Dan, let's give them some belief in themselves. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about, what do we need to do to believe in ourselves more and not just come across cocky and arrogant? What do we need to do to move in a direction where we're not faking it until we're making it? And that's what it is. And we really don't like ourselves. Talk about establishing belief in ourselves truly.
Chad, I love what you asked, because you're asking for when people hear belief, and when sometimes we hear like this rah, go for it. And they hear like support. And yes, I'm here to support, the whoever I can support, but I'd rather give you like, here's an actionable, do this, and then you achieve this. So the entire book is, like I said, it's a blueprint. So it's a blueprint to be able to be the best version of yourself. So an example of one of the concepts that I talk about in the book is called the self-coaching model. The self-coaching model is something that has been around for years and years that psychologists have discovered and teach, which is really the way that we perceive life. All right. So if you consider this, if you imagine, and if you're at home, if you're not driving and you got a piece of paper and a pen, then maybe play along with me. If you are driving, then, if you got a Tesla, do it. Otherwise, don't. And so at the top of your piece of paper, I want you to write down the word circumstance. The circumstance is just what happens in our lives. Okay. And we perceive our circumstances through our five senses. All right. So you're listening to this right now. You're hearing it. So that's one of your senses, but you're probably right now doing something else. Maybe you're washing the dishes. Maybe you are driving. Maybe you're exercising, and you're feeling things and you're hearing things, outside of this show, etc. And so the circumstance is the way that we perceive life. Then from the circumstance, if you we're going to filter it after we hear something or see something or feel something or taste something, smell or I think I lost the sense there, but the five senses. And so either way, so it comes into your world, and then in neurolinguistic programming, they teach us about these three concepts, which is generalizations, deletions, and distortions. So our brains have the ability to pick up on 40 to 50 bits of data at any given moment out of 11.2 million options. Think about what I just said, 40 to 50 options out of 11.2 million. So what that means is there's always evidence and there's always proof. Whatever you believe is true. If you believe that Chad is the best guy in the world, it's true because there's evidence of that. If you believe that Dan is, I can't say anything derogatory about me, but whatever it may be, it's true. All right, because there's 40 or 50 bits of data out of 11.2 million that you can find that suggests that, hey, I've got flaws and I'm a human being. So we go through the circumstance and then we filter it through generalizations, deletions, and distortions. So what that means is that we may not hear everything, or we may hear something like, there's a president that you may be aware of that says things like, everybody says this. The people are telling me this. Well, the question becomes is who's everybody and who's the people, right? Because what our brains do is that they interpret the people to mean our people, me. You're talking to me. Okay, you're talking to my friends. Everybody is the same, right? You fill in the gaps of whatever the communicator wants you to fill in the gaps to believe. And oh, by the way, it's so effective that at least half the people in our country will vote you to become the president by using these very basic rudimentary communication styles. Okay, so you go through generalizations, deletions, and distortions, then you assign meaning to whatever your circumstance is. The meaning that you assign is based off your education, your background, your upbringing, your culture, your beliefs, how you were raised, where you were raised, and now it goes from circumstance, which you wrote down on the top of your paper, and then to the right of that. So if we're going to do a clock here, put circumstance at the noon o'clock position. Around the 2 o'clock position, you're going to write down the word thought. So between the circumstance and the thought, all that stuff that I just talked to you about, generalizations, deletions, distortions, and then assigning meaning happens. And now you're going to have a thought. That thought, maybe it's a great thought. If it's a great thought, then what happens next, and you write down around the 5 o'clock position on your piece of paper, you write down the word feeling. So it goes from circumstance through the filters to a thought, to a feeling, and then across on the left to that feeling, around the 7 o'clock position, you're going to write down the word actions. And then above actions, around the 10 o'clock position, you're going to write down the word results. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put an arrow in between going clockwise, between circumstance to thought, between thought to feeling, between feeling and actions, between actions and results, and between results and circumstance. And what you'll discover, that's a closed loop. Now, I just gave you what psychologists teach us what life is, because that is your life. I had just described to you, by the way. That's how you make meaning of your life. But what you have yet to discover is, what do you do about that? Because if you look at your piece of paper, if you follow the exercise, you see a closed loop. So if you see a closed loop, that's the reason why we keep hitting that ceiling of achievement over and over and over and over again and never breaking through. So here's the hack. The hack, and you've heard this before, right? But you may not have heard this scientifically explained to you. That's what the book does. It doesn't just tell you, it walks you through how to make a change. So how do you make a change? How do you break through that ceiling of achievement? We are subconscious beings. We operate the majority of our lives in a subconscious state. That's a hypnotic state, by the way. We're hypnotized the majority of our day. You drive to Starbucks right now, you may or may not remember driving there. You get there and you may or may not remember ordering your coffee. But the reality of it, because you're in a subconscious state. So what do you do about that? When you're in a conscious state, you program yourself. How do you program yourself? By listening to the great podcasts, such as the one that you're listening to right now, by reading books like Teach to Sell, by the relationship that you have, by meditation, affirmations, visualizations, exercise. I give an entire list of things in the book to say, hey, here's how you could change your state of being so that that thought, between the circumstance and the thought, that thought can be a better thought. Because if you look at your results, they all start in that gap in between the circumstance and the thought. And so the clue, the way to change that is by changing your first thought. Now, you can always change your second thought, okay? But when you're able to program yourself to have a better first thought, then you'll be able to position yourself so that you can get better results. And I'm going to give people one hack, a tangible hack that every single person that's listening to this right now, you can implement this right now. When you go to the restroom and you wash your hands, I want that water to hit your hands as an anchor. And that anchor is going to tell you to ask yourself these questions. What am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? What am I about to do right now? Now, when I first started doing that, I would put a little alarm on my phone. And what would happen is I'd be recording a podcast like this and my alarm would go off and I can't do it. So that's why I changed and said, well, I want to do this 5 or 6 times a day. What natural alarm clock do I have? Right? Well, we all have the same natural alarm clock. And now we also, hopefully you're washing your hands after that natural alarm clock. And now you've got an anchor. And I'll tell you one more time so in case you don't have to rewind. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I about to do? Those are the 3 questions to ask yourself.
Thought, feeling, action. Bob, this is going to mean you have to wash your hands more often.
I'm saying that to everybody but Bob.
I'll find
Bob,
a different anchor. Thank you very much. I'll find a
go.
different anchor.
Look, folks, there's so much more in the book. Dan has been a strong source of value and resource for a long time that I've been connected with him. And we wanted to make sure we shared it all with you. We want to make sure that his book hits that bestseller list that we know is out there. You can get it anywhere. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on all the other book places. If you want, you can go to teach2sellbook.com because Dan, if you order it from that site, is throwing in some additional digital training worth $10,000 worth. That'll be there that you'll get access to. Check that out. Go to Ted's page on YouTube and search for Dan and the identity gap and check out his TED Talk. Let's get the views up on that. And while you're there, check out Brian Gubernick's.
Wait, Chad, before you go, can I, because normally you would just go right through here.
That's the influence gap.
Influence gap. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
What I'm thinking is this was really good, Dan. Thank you. Like I picked up a couple nuggets. This was great. What are you feeling?
You're welcome.
I'm feeling energized. And what I'm about to do, I'm going to go watch this TED Talk. I'm going to go watch the influence gap. I've got it right here. I'm scared to click on his Facebook because I feel like it'll kick off and start playing or whatever, but
it will. Don't do that.
I'm not gonna. The next click is right here from his Facebook page on the influence gap. TEDx. I love it. Thank you so much, Dan, for doing this today with us.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, go out there, check those things out. Dan, thanks for joining us today and sharing so much. Folks, as always, until our next episode, do good.